What's up, YouTube? Today I want to first give a shout out to Dr. Don. You were the one to pick up on that comment I made in the middle of the video, and you were the first person to respond in the comments. Second runner up to that, of course, is the Cosplay Noob. You also caught it, and that's awesome. And so props to you, dude. And also to my fiance, who without her, this wouldn't have got done. It wouldn't have been made. I did the EVA foam shell, of course, for this particular project, but I helped her come up with the pattern, but she cut it out, sewed it, did all of that. I didn't do any of that. She is responsible for this here. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so first of all, I took the patterns that I came up with and traced them out onto some 5mm thick EVA craft foam, and next I'm going to go ahead and cut them out. Okay, so now that I have the main shell pattern pieces cut out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start contact cementing it together, and I'm going to start with contact cementing in all the V-cut seams on both pieces, like this and this. And I'm also going to apply it into all the V seams on these other two pieces as well. And I just use DAP Weldwood contact cement. It's fairly inexpensive, but it works pretty good. Barge is definitely the best, but it costs 3 times as much easily, at least where I can retail it locally. Okay, so I have glued all of the V cuts together here. And they were all pretty simple and straightforward. You just push them all together and make sure that your edges here line up as you do so that it's nice and even. However, this one here is a little bit of a struggle because this side you kind of have to pull downwards as you're adhering it to it. And next, we're going to glue all these shell pieces together along their edges. So for the main shell, the first two things that I glue together are these two pieces right in the center here, and the top two pieces right down the center as well. And next, I'm going to attach this to here and glue on the sides. Okay, so now that I have glued all the pieces together into this more or less amorphous, ugly blob, that we will change the shape of greatly as we heat it and form it. But anyways, for right now, it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the eye pieces. And the patterns for that are also going to be cut out of 5mm EVA foam. Okay, I have both of my eye pattern pieces cut out here out of 5mm EVA foam. I'm going to go ahead and put contact cement in the V's and in here and line up the outside edge pieces so that they match up and glue them together. Okay, so I got the V cuts here put together, and then I went ahead and glued in the eye areas. But as you can see, this is just blobby. I did glue these slightly offset so they stick out a little bit more. Part of that is because I am going to be covering this with cloth. I'm also going to be cutting the back out of it too. But this first part of the video, of course, is just to serve and show you if you want to go ahead and make your own mask just out of EVA foam, you can do that. But I'm actually going to remove the back of this and just keep this as a frame. What I'm going to do first is take my dual temperature heat gun here. It has a high and low setting. It's by Drill Master. I'm going to go ahead and put it on high. What I'm doing here is getting the foam nice and hot so I can start to work the shape in it that I want. I want this top to be more round. I'm going to want the sides to come in some here. I'll pop in and out and show you the progress that I make as I heat and smooth this. But a heat gun is definitely important to get the exact shape that you want. Glued together, it's just the mask is just kind of a blob. You have to pull the nose shape into it. You can see it's already kind of there. It wants to be a nose. You just have to heat it and work it into shape. Okay, just to pop back in here real quick and show you some of the differences. You can see this side I've shaped and slightly curved in to give the temple. This side is not and still a blob. It's details like that I'm going to work in. I've also started to heat and shape this brow by pinching it from the inside so that it V's in, and then pushing it in a little bit right here to give you a nice flatter forehead area. And when you do this, you just want to think of anatomical details. Okay, I've also stuck my hands inside after heating the inside and outside to pull out some cheekbone area here. And then I pushed in here where the jaw would come down in. Okay, so I also went through here and heated and pulled out the nose and then pinched and heated so that you have some more nose shape here. I also stuck my finger under and heated from the inside and then the outside and pulled this out to give it a nice brow definition. And also put in a little bit of cheek eye socket definition by pushing this in while pulling this out. And just for comparison here, I've done nothing to this side. So you can see the difference. This side is totally plain and flat, and this side is not. Okay. I've also heated this bottom edge and curled it under some to mimic the jaw. I want to have this curled under area here matching up with my jaw so that whenever I glue the mesh material to the outside of it, it will go under nicely and give me a nice jawline, neckline, etc., etc. Okay, so here is the finished Deadpool mask, and as you can see, I have all the different anatomy: nose, the mouth area, the brow, the ridges in the eyes. I even pulled out areas for the ears on either side that just kind of follow a little outside of this seam that I put into it. And this is also where I'm about to cut. I'm going to cut from here up around and come around down through here, which is why you'll notice I didn't bother to heat any of this and shape it, because this back part is coming off because there's going to be a cloth shell covering this hole with the rear of it removed. I went ahead and took that off because I'm not going to use it. Like I say, this is going to be so I can easily get it on my head and then enclose the cloth in the back. The next area I'm going to work on is Deadpool's little cowlick mask nub thing he's got going on back here. Okay, and just so you guys can see and get an idea here of just how well this fits my head. Like, this comes right past my ear here, right down into my jawline and around. I'm going to point this out because I made this pattern specifically to fit me. Like, you can see my eyes are right where the eye holes are. Everything on this is made specifically to fit me. If you download the pictures from the Facebook page, or if you buy patterns, you're going to need to adjust them to fit you if you want an exact fit. If it's a little bigger and you can still see out of it just fine, then run with it if you want. But this pattern is made to fit specifically me. And I also want to point out here on top, I have glued on my support for the little nub in the back. And that nub pattern piece, all I did was cut it out of 2mm EVA foam, kind of stretched into the shape I want. Had my fiance help me decide exactly where to put it so it would look proper with the cloth face shell. And I used some scrap pieces of EVA foam to just kind of prop it up and help hold it in place. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Dremel and, using the medium grit or a medium grit sanding head that came with the kit, I'm going to go ahead and sand out and smooth out some of these edges here, just like I've done in a bunch of other videos. However, this time the only areas I'm going to silicone and texture are going to be the eyes, because cloth is going to cover everything else. However, I don't want some pointy seam or some edge pushing the cloth out of shape. I want it to look natural and good, so I'm going to go ahead and sand all the seams. So I've finished all the Dremel work, and you can see I just smoothed out and rounded out all of the places where the glue was glued together. And the only thing I'm actually going to hand sand, of course, is the eyepieces. If you were just going to make, your mask as just a mask without the cloth overshell, you would want to silicone and hand sand everything. But I'm just going to silicone and hand sand the eyepieces. Okay, so now that the face shell here is done, I am going to be working on actually making the cloth that is going to cover it. Now, this is not going to include cloth patterns, and the reason why this is not going to include cloth patterns is because the cloth patterns that I'm making are to fit my head only, okay? My head and my head only. And that also includes the neck and the neck line. So to get this pattern is fairly simple. You can use plastic wrap, or I have an old grocery bag here. All you're going to do is cover your piece here with your trash bag or your saran wrap. And then what you're going to do is you're going to cover that with tape,
clear tape so that you can still see your eyes. Once you have the thing entirely covered in your clear packing tape, you're going to want to draw out your eyes, and you're going to want to draw where your seams are that you want visible. On the mask, you'll notice the seams are pretty much where I put the cut lines on the foam itself. The seams go from here all the way to the back. And for the cloth piece, it's going to fold around underneath the little nubby-doo, because the cloth, this center cloth piece is what we're going to make the nubby-doo, as I'm going to call it, out of. And then you're going to have one side piece for each side going down to your neck. Now, depending upon your jawline and everything, you may have to do some creative stitching through here, but all the cloth is going to be glued to the shell so that it keeps its shape. The only place the cloth obviously is not going to be glued is where there is no shell, and I can easily put my head in and out and then Velcro the back so that it will fit me nicely. And to make these patterns and to do the sewing, I am actually not doing it. My fiance is doing it, so I will film as much of that as I can, and I will explain as much of that as I can, but I don't know sewing. And yeah, she's amazing at that, and I'm not. Okay, and just to pop back in and show you exactly what I'm talking about, this is the pattern piece that I made from a white grocery bag that I taped over it. And you can see here where this fits right beside the eye, and you can see where the seam line and the stitch is going to go, and this piece is going to follow right around to the back here, hook underneath the nub, and this back flap here will be open so I can put Velcro on it. Right, so here is the mock-up of the actual cloth over piece, and it's just pinned, it's not sewed yet. Once this is sewed, it'll be flipped inside out. I just wanted to show you guys what I'm doing, or what my fiance is doing, because I'm not actually doing this. She is, because I'm not good with the sewing and the thread and the needles and stuff. And once again, just show you the pattern pieces that we ended up coming up with. This center piece, we just cut down the center and then folded it over to get both halves. And then I already showed you guys the side piece earlier, which is right here. And now she is going to go stitch this up, and I'm going to start gluing this on afterward. So I just realized as I'm going through this whole process of helping her make patterns and sew things, etc., I didn't even tell you where I got this fabric from. Okay, this is an old jersey that I got from a Goodwill for $1.99. It's Lobos jersey. Yeah, sorry Lobos jersey. Sorry, Lobos fans. Don't mean to offend any of you if in the off chance a Lobos fan is watching. It's nothing against them. I just needed this nice textured material. And I also needed something stretchy that I could stretch over a mask and get some of the finer detail out of. So this worked out great and was only $1.99 from the thrift store. Of course, I will put this in the description. I'll try to remember to mention in the open that I forgot to mention it until halfway through doing the sewing and the patterns. But yeah, this is from a jersey. I did not buy this. I did not spend a lot of money on it. If it costs a lot of money, 9 times out of 10, it ain't going to be in my videos anyways. Alrighty, so I cut out my pleather pieces for the eyes, but I really did not like them. They just didn't quite fit right for one thing. I didn't think the first Deadpool mask I made, I actually had a stretch pleather or a spandex pleather, which make excellent capes, by the way. And what I'm doing here is siliconing the seams. And what I'm siliconing these seams with, in particular, the ones in the eye and on the edge of the eye, you can see these 3 are done. This one is not filled. And what I use to fill that is DAP all-purpose acrylic latex caulk plus silicone. Okay, so the Deadpool mask here has been stitched together, and I just finished trimming up the eyes, and next what I'm going to do is start to glue this on. But before I glue it on, my fiance asked me to show you guys the settings on her particular sewing machine. You see she has it between 4 and 5 on the stretch because the material is quite stretchy, and that is the pattern that she is using. Okay? Okay, now that this is done, as I just mentioned, the only thing to do, of course, is to glue this on. And to glue it on, I was going to use a spray adhesive, but around the eyes, it's just way too tricky. So I ended up going with contact cement. I applied it directly around the eyes for about a ½ inch on either side, and also did some of the nose and brow area. And then, of course, I went through with contact cement. You can kind of see it here in the light, and brushed it on all around here as well. And once I glue this very carefully, because there's no room for error, of course, with contact cement. But once I very carefully glue this onto here, I am going to attach all the rest of it with this Loctite spray adhesive. And this stuff is really strong. It's also kind of expensive. For the 300 heavy duty stuff, it is around $10 for this can, at least at like hardware stores. Now, if you get the 200 or the 100, you're looking at, I think, like $3 and $6. It's worth it to spend the extra money and get this stuff, because it is after I have glued on the cloth, and I got it pretty good. And as you can notice, there are a couple wrinkles here and there. Now, a couple things I wish I'd done and didn't think of until pretty much immediately after gluing this thing on was the fact that I should have put some vent holes in the mouth area, and actually anywhere, now that I think about it. You could put a couple here, anywhere throughout it. I may still go through with like an ice pick or a screwdriver and burrow out some holes in the foam. I'm not going to use a drill or anything, but pro tip, guys, think ahead and put some ventilation holes in your Deadpool shell. Trust me, you will be happy for it. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to texture this and paint it black. Okay, so to texture these eye areas, I am going to use some Mod Podge. And this Mod Podge here that I have, doesn't matter if it's gloss or matte. I just like to use the gloss. I don't really specifically have a reason. But I went ahead and already brushed a thin coat evenly over this whole black area here. Okay? And I did that because I want to seal the foam first, so that whenever I go back and texture it and stipple it with this, it is going to have a nice look without me having to worry about all the Mod Podge just automatically soaking into the foam, which does happen because the foam just absorbs things, whether it's Plastidip or whatever. Another option is, if you want to try to do this separate, would be to do these pieces separate and texture them with Plastidip and then put them in, or try to mask off the rest of the mask, but I'm not doing that. That's so much work that I feel this is quicker and easier. I'm going to get the same results. And all I'm going to do with this is dip my brush in, and then I'm just going to start stippling it around like this so that I start to get a non-smooth, leatherish looking pattern. And I'm going to go over the whole piece on both pieces. I'm going to go over each one doing this once. I'm going to let it dry for at least 1 hour, come back and see how it looks. If I feel that I need to do another application to get what I desire, or if it just maybe soaked in a couple areas, then I will go back and reapply it. But I'm going to do it till I get a nice even effect. Okay, I don't know how well you can actually see this texturing on camera. It looks like it's decent, but hopefully you can get a good idea. This has been 2 applications of just dabbing it all over after 1 application of just straight even coat sealing, as I've already explained, and I'm pretty happy with it. And the simple fact is, I'm going to go through right now and I'm going to airbrush this. If I don't like it, or there's something I want to fix or repair on it, or I feel like I need another coat, I can just put on another coat of Mod Podge and go ahead and airbrush it black all over again. So on to the airbrushing here. What I'm using in my airbrush is opaque Createx black that I thin out considerably with water. The consistency of your airbrush paint, of course, is entirely up to you. I like mine pretty runny. Part of the reason is I don't have a very good airbrush. This here is a, what is this? Master airbrush. I don't even know what that is. It's not an Iwata. It's not a like name brand. It's just some bargain thing I got with the air compressor. But I figured out how to use it as well as I can for what it is. And when I get some more money, of course, I will upgrade to something nicer, or if I happen to come across one used. And I'm not actually going to mask this off. The reason why, I actually want a little darkness spilling over into the fabric just a little bit along the edges. I'm going to be careful not to get too much. If it starts to get saturated, what I will do is use a piece of scrap whatever, and I'll just hold it, and where I don't want the paint to go, and just spray in front of it. But I'm going to go ahead and start off freehanding. And I got my compressor turned up pretty high, and this is a this is an airbrush that has more than one flow. It's not just a solid flow stream. As I push down on it and pull back, it releases more and more and more paint. So if I want it to be thinner, then I just don't pull it all the way back and the paint doesn't come out as thick. But I do crank this up pretty much all the way. I crank it up to around 60 on the gauge, and the actual working pressure though is really closer to 30. But yeah, that's a little high, but that's just how I roll, I guess. Okay, so that's pretty much the whole gist of that. All I do is just paint it black. And as this dries and isn't so glossy, hopefully I'll be able to get a nice good look at just how well the texture looks that I've done and if I like it or not. Also, sometimes not always happy with the seams, and I'll go back through and fill those again, retexture it, and just paint it. But like I said, I gotta let this first to dry. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint this other one. And once I'm done with that, I am gonna do a little darkness in some low light areas, like along the seams. And in this area here, and a little bit in here, and down under the nose, and along these seams here as well, and a little bit in the cheeks here, just to add some contouring, kind of similar to what you do with makeup, except I'm using an airbrush on a mask. Alrighty then, so I finished the black all around here, and I also did the low lighting, where I just gently sprayed a little bit of black here, a little bit to give shadow under the nose, a little bit for the mouth, of course right in between the brows here, a little bit here. Same on this side under the cheekbones, and I also went all just right along this edge here, up around where the ear is. Basically the bottom of the jaw and the ear. Did that on both sides as well. And then I also followed the seams around with a little bit of black from the airbrush. Tilt this around so it gets into what little light I have in here, so you guys can get an idea what this looks like. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I like it. Even the little imperfections and things don't bug me like they did at first, so I'm pretty stoked on it. And the last two things to do, of course, are put some sheer fabric in the eyes. You can use any number of things that you choose. I just happen to have this sheer fabric laying around that isn't quite white. Doesn't matter. Once I cut it and glue it in there with some super glue, it will excuse me, it will be able to be painted white. You can either do this by dry brushing some white on it, or you can airbrush some white on it. Of course, I am going to airbrush it white. Right, I got the lenses glued in here, and I'm pretty particular. I know it's just some sheer fabric, but the actual lines on each one are opposite but the same, if that makes sense. They're symmetrical. I glued them in so it made sense. Maybe I'm going a little too far in this, I don't know. But now I'm going to go ahead and airbrush these white. Alright, now that lenses are in and painted and all that stuff's done, I put some Velcro in the back here so that I could close it and trimmed off the excess that I didn't need. And I attached the Velcro with some contact cement. And now, the only thing left is to try this on. Alright, so here it is with the nut closed. Fits rather well. It is pretty comfortable. It is, of course, hot, because I did not put any vent holes in the foam shell. And I even thought of that, but I just didn't do it. But other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, as it helps out my channel a lot. I appreciate each and every one of you. I was happy to fulfill this request, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this video. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.